In our last screencast, we began to talk about insular art made in early Anglo-Saxon England. And we were looking at the first cover of Sutton Hoo, or at the site of Sutton Hoo, and the evidence that it may well have been the burial site of King Redwald of the Wuthing clan, the clan of the wolf, suggested by this heraldic figure of a man surrounded, protected perhaps, by two wolves. The other evidence, of course, is that there are these two Byzantine silver spoons that were buried in the ship alongside the purse that are inscribed with the names of Saul and Paul, which is the name of the Apostle Paul before and after his conversion. Redwald was a member of the Wuthing clan, and in fact he did convert. And furthermore, he lived at the same time as the coins that were found in the Sutton Hoo purse cover. This sets the stage for this particular screencast, as we're going to talk about Christian works of art made during this time period. Around this time, nearly all of England converted to Christianity. This is the period after the separation of the Byzantine Empire from the western part of Europe. This is the period when missionaries are being sent from Rome into the provinces to convert these peoples who are migrating in. St. Patrick, for example, is sent from Rome to Ireland in the year 432. And St. Augustine is sent from Rome into Kent in the year 597. Their efforts converted almost all of England to Christianity during the early part of this migration period. Their followers established monasteries outside of the main centers of civilization, where they could devote themselves to prayer and where they would use as bases for their outreach to these people. The Lindisfarne Gospels from the textbook was made at a monastery on a small island off the coast of Northumbria, part of what is today Scotland, and was used by these monks to display to the people of Anglo-Saxon England as they tried to reach out to them, to evangelize them, to bring them to Christianity. As you can see, it uses the Anglo-Saxon style of very tight, very intricate, interlaced patterns that cover every inch of the page of the manuscript. In this case, it forms a cross. That doesn't happen every time, it's just in this particular instance. So it's almost as if the traditions of Anglo-Saxon decoration can now be found being imprinted with the form of Christianity. And our monks at the monasteries, here at the monastery of Lindisfarne, would have used these as showpieces to reach out to the people of England, the Anglo-Saxons, to communicate to them in a language that they themselves knew. Now, the Lindisfarne Gospels is not the entire Bible. In fact, most early biblical books did not have the entire Bible. This one was just the four Gospels, the four accounts of the life of Christ. And each one of them begins with the same sequence. So this appears before the book of Matthew. And in each of these books, in each of the four Gospels of Lindisfarne, it starts off with a portrait of the evangelist. In this case, it's probably his symbol writing the book, but with an angel, his symbol, trumpeting the words to him. An Old Testament prophet probably looks out from behind the curtain. You flip the page, and it's followed by the carpet page. You flip that page, and then the manuscript actually begins. What we see on the right, Liber Generationis, the book of the ancestry or the generations of Christ. And in the Lindisfarne Gospels and in other manuscripts in this period, we see the same sequence, particularly in these insular manuscripts. An author portrait, a carpet page, and then the beginning of the book. And you'll notice that even the letter for Liber, even though it's in Latin, is still filled with that same intricate interlaced pattern. Our manuscript painters did not say why they included the carpet page. And like I said, it's not always a cross. But there have been a number of suggestions. Some people think it might have been the impact of Islam. Prayer carpets were used with intricate patterns to get, for Muslims to get into the proper mindset for prayer. Might this do the same thing before we turn the page and start reading the book? That we're here to have a certain mindset. Another possibility, and again they never said why, is that these intricate interlaced patterns were meant to be apotropaic devices, ways to ward off evil, that evil spirits would get so wrapped up with the intricate pattern, looking for the animals that you can see here, birds' heads, wings, look almost like flamingos, don't they? There's the head here, there's the body and the wings, the green legs coming down here and looping around. You find yourself sort of tied up in these lines. And some people think that, in fact, that was exactly the case here at Lindisfarne, that the carpet page that appears before the book is meant to tie up any unwanted spirits that might want to demonize the book. Your textbook illustrates one other insular manuscript made at a different monastery, the monastery of Iona, but again used for the same purpose, to reach out to the local people as part of the attempt to convert those peoples to Christianity, to bring them to the fold. And it too, the Book of Kells, had the same opening sequence for the Book of Matthew that we saw at Lindisfarne, which is to say it had a portrait of Matthew, followed by a carpet page, followed by the first initial of the book. What we're seeing here on the right is a different page with a full page illustration. This one is marking a very important part of the text. The chi, rho, iota, remember we've talked about this before, the X, P, I initials, are the Greek letters for Jesus' name, Christus. X is CH, P is R, I is I. Christus, which was the letters that Constantine had his soldiers paint on their shields. Here, in the Book of Kells, it marks the very first time that Christ's name is mentioned in the Book of Matthew. The Book of Matthew begins with the ancestry of Christ, so-and-so begat so-and-so, and so-and-so begat so-and-so, and when it gets down to the point where begat Christ, we come to a splash page, to a full stop. And that's what this illustrates, the very first time that Christ's name is ever mentioned in the Book of Matthew, and it's also the text that was read on Christmas Day, and the book would have been displayed in the monastery with this page open, as the monks talked about the birth of the Savior. So it was an important part of the outreach ministry, was the use of this book and its Anglo-Saxon styled illustrations to say that Christ is there too. And here I have a number of details where we can see the same intricacy to the interlaced patterns everywhere in the page. Again, the page is about 13 inches tall, so it's not much larger than a sheet of writing paper. But again, the deep patterns that appear everywhere on the page. In addition to this, you'll notice that there are human figures as well. This red-headed figure, which is interesting considering who they're reaching out to, hiding among the different patterns. You can also see it's fairly badly worn. Some of the colors have faded quite a bit. So we have a red-headed figured head here at the end of the row. Under the arm of the chi, you can see angels here with wings on either side. Here's another one as well, with wings coming off either side, human figures. Up above, underneath the arm of the Kai, you can see two butterflies facing each other here. There's the head, there's the tail, flying toward each other. Down below, at the bottom, you see an otter here, holding a fish in its mouth. And finally, immediately next to that, just here, you see cats with mice. The cats seem to be holding the mice by their paws, and the mice are fighting over a communion wafer, what Christians would take during the Mass ceremony. These animals have been suggested to represent all parts of living creatures under the domination of Christ. Humans, things of the air, things of the ocean, things of the land. And that's certainly possible. It's also somewhat funny, rather humorous, that these mice are fighting over that communion wafer, and one of the real dangers of being in a monastery. But you'll also notice as we look at this that it's unfinished. This cat is painted with a very decorative pattern to its coat, but the cat on your right is not. This is because the monastery of Iona was attacked by Vikings 3 times around the year 800, 810. And the monks fled with the book. So they were here on this island of Iona off of Scotland. And when they were attacked by Vikings, this third time they couldn't hold off the attack, they took the book with them and they fled down to the monastery of Kells, which is not marked on this map, but it's roughly there, sort of northwest of Dublin. And that's why we call it the Book of Kells, because it stayed there for the rest of the Middle Ages. But it remains for us here as a prime example of how Christian artists are using Anglo-Saxon decorative designs to illustrate their manuscripts that they're using to reach out to those Anglo-Saxons in an attempt to convert them to Christianity.